many motorcycle riders that have been riding for a long time have been in some sort of wreck, and I'm no different. So a couple of years back, I think it was September of 2021, September of 2021, I was supposed to go for my M2 motorcycle test. So in Ontario, we have a graduated licensing system. Starts off with M1, then M2, then what they call full M. I'm currently in M2, and it'll make sense why in a bit. So I was scheduled to go for my M2 in Windsor, and I lived in Chatham at the time. It's about a 45-minute to an hour drive on the 401, and since I only had an M1, I couldn't take the 401. I had to take the back roads, and I had to, or the weather forecast started to look pretty bleak that day, and I had a borrowed bike from my cousin because it's insanely expensive to insure a bike in Ontario, let alone with your learner's permit. So I didn't have my own bike, so I borrowed my cousin's. It was a CB 600F. They called it the Hornet. I think it was a 2005. And I didn't have any rain gear. I had a helmet and some like cloth dirt biking gloves or something like that. I was very ill-equipped. But I was desperate. I didn't want to cancel my appointment because I wouldn't be able to get another one in that year, and then I would have to start all over again next year. So I just determined to go, and I decided I will wear the next best thing I have: a winter jacket and snow pants and some leather boots. And I say leather, but they were probably just like, I don't know, plastic made to look like leather. I don't know how boots are made. Anyway, I get from Chatham to Tilbury, and I can feel the water starting to soak in through my knees. By the time I got to Windsor, I'm soaking wet and pretty cold, honestly. So I went to my motorcycle test, I did the parking lot drill, and then on the way to where we were supposed to meet the instructor for the on-road portion, I don't know Windsor very well, or at least that area, so I was trusting the one other guy to know where to go, and he went to the wrong spot. So long story short, she never shows up because we're not in the right spot, and so we just eventually head back to the testing center, and she can't finish our tests because she has other appointments. So they said they would call us to reschedule the road test portion. So I head home. I'm still cold, still wet, obviously. It's been raining this whole time. So I left at like 6 a.m. and by the time I left Windsor, it was probably more like 7. Or sorry, not 7. It was more like 11. So around 11 I leave Windsor, and I make it all the way to Chatham. It was kind of sketchy, not gonna lie. It's my first time riding in the rain, and I get into Chatham and I feel safe now because we're doing city speed limits. I'm not getting blown around the highway by tractor trailers. I must have let my guard down a little bit. So I'm turning onto the road that leads into my like the area I lived at the time, making a left turn, and I look at the next traffic light, and I notice that it's red, and that's the last time I noticed it was red, because after that I was focused on the traffic light past that one, which was also red, and they're pretty close together. So if you don't see the if you're not paying enough attention, they can kind of blend into one. Plus it's raining, I'm cold, I'm just thinking about a hot shower. I get into the intersection that has the red light, and I realize the light is red as I'm about halfway into the intersection. Time stopped at that point. It was like a movie where they do that freeze the frame and spin the camera around someone just before something bad happens. That's how it felt in my head. So I see the light and a black Kia on my left side at the exact same time. And luckily, the black Kia had just left the stoplight, so he was only doing probably 10 kilometers an hour or so. He hits my left leg, and I go down, slide across the intersection, and I end up on the sidewalk. Luckily, I slid up the sidewalk where there's that the yellow plastic grate for traction, I guess. So I didn't hit the curb. I slid up onto the sidewalk right where someone would be crossing the road. I don't remember anything after, like, between getting hit and ending up on the sidewalk. I know that I slid that whole way because my boots and my snow pants were shredded up. And I'm in a lot of pain. I think my leg is broken. I've never felt so much pain in my leg in my entire life, so I just assumed it was broken. And luckily there was a doctor actually happened to be on the road, and he like checked my neck to make sure I wasn't broken. I'm gonna sound like a weirdo if this guy hears me talking to myself, but carry on. So I'm laying there, doctor checks my neck, and they cart me away in an ambulance. The bike is down the road. The bike basically took a right turn from the intersection, and I went diagonally across. So after that, well, obviously my wife didn't want me to ride anymore. She was terrified. Just of the thought, like just bringing up the idea of riding again was enough to give her PTSD. So I didn't ride for a couple of years after that. And then it took about a full year before she could even have a conversation about that, understandably. 2 years in, it's kind of like, yeah, we can try it again. And so it took about full 3 years before I was able to get back on a bike. And so the thing that I learned the hard way, unfortunately, is at GAT. All the gear, all the time. Make sure you have appropriate gear for the weather. There's nothing that will impair your judgment, besides alcohol, more than being cold and wet. Cold is one thing, wet is one thing. Cold and wet is a bad combination. So I now ride in waterproof gear all the time. Well, at least in the spring, because I'm going to work today, and there's no rain, but I know the forecast has rain in the evening and afternoon. So if I'm riding home in the rain, most likely. Unfortunately, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Learn from my mistakes. Make sure you have a good helmet. If I hadn't been wearing a full face helmet, I would have lost my jaw. Like, I slid on my helmet the whole way. Thanks for listening to my little story. I hope that one person will take this story and decide to go AT-GAT like I have. It could save your life. At the very least, it will save you from transferring your skin to the pavement. Hit that like button if you liked my story, if you like these types of videos. Leave me a comment down below about what you would like me to talk about next, and please hit that subscribe button. Alright, thank you so much. Take care.